Alright, so today I want to do a quick video. I might delete this one. It's just an extension of the video that I did yesterday. I'm not going to put any love or effort into this video. I just want to communicate something to you guys. And I want to set something clear and straight with you guys. Vulnerability is a superpower. It is a strength. The more masculine a man is, the more incredibly vulnerable he is with himself. In order to actually be a fearless man, you must actually have, you must actually be a man who is 100% vulnerable with himself. The least vulnerable you are with yourself, the more dragons you blind yourself to. You're actually somebody who avoids slaying dragons when you avoid vulnerability. There is nothing more painful than being vulnerable with yourself. There is no greater suffering than sitting with your own vulnerabilities. The truth will always expose your vulnerabilities. The truth will always present a dragon for you to slay. When you are uncomfortable with being vulnerable with yourself, you will avoid, deny, and reject truths. Because truths expose you. They expose the dragons you need to slay. And when you are afraid, when you have too much fear, when you feel like you're not strong enough or good enough to slay those dragons, you won't do it. You will develop defense mechanisms. You will develop coping mechanisms. You will develop whatever the ego needs to do to protect you, it will do so. It will create belief systems. It will create moral value judgments that justify you not slaying those dragons, you not sitting with this truth, you not exposing yourself. I remember on Instagram, I did a really good analogy between mice and men. And I was basically explaining how there are two types of men. All right, you can understand it like all men, we all start life like mice. And when you think about it as well, we do many of our tests and experiments on mice because our nervous systems are very similar to the nervous systems of mice. And I was basically explaining how when you come into a room and you turn a light on, if you've got some mice, when I was living in London, by the way, had some mice. So I have my experiences with mice. So if you hear me talking about mice, it's because I've been traumatized. I've been traumatized by some mice. By the way, come into the room, come into the kitchen, you turn the light on. The mouse is going to run, right? The light exposes the mouse. The mouse who has, in the darkness, came out into the middle of the kitchen, right? Because it's comfortable to come out in the darkness, into the middle of the kitchen. When I bowl downstairs now, thinking, it's not too late for me to make a chicken sandwich, is it? Hopefully there won't be no mice. And I turn that kitchen light on. Boom, the light exposes the mouse. The mouse will quickly run to whatever corner, whatever shelter it can find immediately, right? It will run to that. And if the light reflects the truth, it's exposing the mouse's vulnerability. The mouse who is a coward, the mouse who is a prey species, the mouse who has a nervous system and the ego to always take steps away from things it is afraid of, from dangers, from even irrational fears, right? Because I'm more afraid of the mouse than the mouse is afraid of me. I wasn't going to come and do nothing to this mouse. I screamed same way when I saw the mouse. Like I ran upstairs, right? But anyway. And what the analogy was that with mice, there's always a small percentage of these mice who have a different type of a spirit. The spirit of the predator, the emperor, a different type of a mouse. This mouse is just the same as the other mice. You know, it's squishy, it's small, it can die if you stamp on it hard enough. But this mouse is no mouse. This mouse has the spirit of something stronger. This mouse has observed other beings and creatures that were stronger than it. This mouse decided, you know what, I might be a mouse, but I'm going to invoke the spirit of a tiger. I'm going to invoke the spirit of a lion, of a cat. It's going to invoke the spirit of something stronger. I'm going to invoke the spirit of a man, what it perceives to be a man. And instead of me running when the lights come on and scurrying into the corners, no, what I'm going to do, I'm going to stand tall. I'm going to get on my hind legs and I'm going to expose my body. I'm going to stand up strong in defiance. In defiance. To prove to life, to prove to the light, to prove to that fella who came into the room, to prove to the other mice standing behind me, to prove to myself that I am more than a mouse. I am a man. I am a tiger. I am a lion. I may have the body of a mouse, but my spirit is equally as strong as anything else on this earth. And as a mark of rebellion, of defiance, I'm going to do the opposite of what was expected of me. And a very, very unique thing happens when you stand in the face of fear. When you stand up against your bully, when you fight back against your bully, something unique happens, right? So when I came into the kitchen this one time and that mouse saw everything run, that mouse was like, "No, fuck that." Stood up against me. Fam, me, the fella who is absolutely terrified of little furry things at the nighttime. When it saw me scream and run, that mouse learned something that day. That mouse learned something that day. It learned that, wait, hold on. Are my fears irrational? This is when that mouse levels up. Because that mouse has been exposed to something that all the other mice can't even fathom. Right, so when that mouse comes back with a whole tray and bucket load of food, and the other mice are like, "What? How'd you get that?" But like, "Listen, I scared away that man when he came into the kitchen." "What? You scared away the man?" "I scared away that man when I came into the kitchen. That gave me all the time to come and get all of this food." That mouse is transformed because of it. Something happens. You begin to realize that maybe your fears are irrational. Even when it makes so much sense. Why would that big, giant black guy scream and run upstairs from me? It wouldn't make any sense. This is the weakness of your logic and your rationality. This is the reason why the spirit is always so much more stronger than your logic and your rationality, because there are things you can't fathom, but things that your spirit can and your spirit can overcome. The limitations of your mind can't. All right, it's just like when you fight back against your bully who's so much bigger than you, your bully who is so aggressive. You think your bully's so evil, you can't even understand, wow, this is such an evil guy, like, he's so aggressive and stuff like that, bothering me for no reason. And then when you finally can't take it no more, I remember when I fought back, but I mean, it wasn't really a bully, but it was kind of like a bully. And it wasn't in school as well, it was just some Jamaican fella that lived around the block. And when I was younger, I was afraid of Jamaican fellas a little bit. But anyway, because, you know, they're mad. But anyway, and I remember when I had to fight back against him. And just like any other person who's ever fought back against their bully, you're completely shocked about how weak and pathetic they are. While bullies can never fight, bullies are never strong. You hit a bully with one connection, they completely break down. They turn into babies. So when I fought back against my bully and I fucked him up, I learned something that day. I overcame something. Now, let me tell you something. When I fought back against my bully, I was actually practicing vulnerability. I surrendered to the outcomes and the fears I was so afraid of. I just surrendered to it. I thought to myself, yeah, but if I fight back, what if he destroys me? Or what if he comes and takes it up another level? What if he embarrasses me in public? What if all these things happened that I was so sure was going to happen if I fought back? It didn't make sense to fight back. But and because of that, that's not me being vulnerable. If that makes sense, I was afraid. I was hiding. I submitted to a fear in order for me to fight back against my bully. Actually, I had to surrender to all of those outcomes. I was like, fuck it, I don't care. I can't take this anymore. I'm gonna go out on my shield. Anything is better than this fate. So when I fought back against my bully, and I just beat him up, and he was crying, like, I didn't think that was going to happen. I learned that, wait, our fear is irrational. So then when the next time somebody was bothering me, I didn't wait no 2 seconds. I just gave him one slap in front of everybody, and he started crying as well. I was like, okay, I'm onto something here, if that makes sense. I'm going to have a proper go at life. And in order to have a proper go at life, you actually need to be very vulnerable, right? You need to be vulnerable to have a proper go at life, because you actually need to be able to embrace the pain and sufferings that come, embrace the inequalities and injustices that come. You embrace it. You sit with it. You look in the mirror. You accept those truths. And then what you do is that you alchemize these truths for greater strength, greater spirit, a greater capacity to enjoy life, greater character, greater perspective, greater psychology. But in order to do that, you actually need to be very vulnerable with yourself. The only way a man can ever be fearless is if he's actually vulnerable with himself. You've got to look fear straight in the eyes. You've got to identify fear in you've got to embrace it, sit with it, let it. You got to explore every single avenue, every nook and cranny of fear. You got to continuously fight this dragon until you win, until you overcome it. That's how you actually grow into a powerful man. The types of individuals who avoid fear or tell themselves that they are fearless when they're not, that's not you being vulnerable with yourself. And you can tell in these types of men's aura, they're not leaders, right? When you look at the animal kingdom, the animals, if it's the leader of a wolf pack, whatever leader of whatever group of animals there are, that leader is the most vulnerable out of all the other animals. There is a misconception that the leader is just the most craziest. No, it's not. It's the most vulnerable. It's the most empathetic. The leader, what you guys need to understand is that the leader typically always confronts the danger first. Now, it's not doing that because it's a madman. It's doing that because it's the most willing to sacrifice itself. I'll say that again. It's the most willing to sacrifice itself. When you look at the animal kingdom, when you look at dogs, for example, their body language, a leader of any kind of dog pack, you can tell who the leader is easily, because its body language, it's so comfortable with exposing its soft bits. It's so comfortable with exposing its neck, whilst the other dogs are not comfortable with doing so. Right? The more cowardly dogs will be barking, running, pretending to be courageous, pretending to be strong. And the leader is always calm. It's got the most calmest nervous system, the most calmest ego. It's the most bravest. Like it honestly doesn't care. It will put its neck right there for you to snap it. Right? And you can only develop a nervous system and an ego like that through genuinely sitting with your own vulnerabilities, by literally overcoming fear. You know, because you're not afraid, right? Does that make sense? You can't fake that nervous system. You can't fake that ego. When you try to fake bravery and courage and fearlessness, you just come across like the other dogs that are barking all over the place when foaming from the mouth. Not a leader. The rest of the pack can identify you as not being a leader. Actually, you're just somebody a little bit dangerous because you're obviously got so many things to prove to yourself. A man who is very vulnerable with himself, he doesn't have anything to prove to himself. He doesn't have anything to prove to others. He's already overcome all of those things. He's an independent person and he feels independent to other people, right? A man who is very vulnerable with himself, he's already overcome his desire for external validation, his desire for external acceptance and external understanding. He cultivates these things for himself. His energy comes from inside. He has an inner flame that generates these things for himself. He provides himself with validation, acceptance, and understanding, right? And in order to be able to get there, you have to go through a lot of pain. Now, here's the thing. This is what you guys need to understand. All of us are able to get there. We all have these doors that we can open, and we're going to get mashed up if we open these doors. It's just pain and suffering. It's just our fears. All of us has the ability. You know, like Dragon Ball Z, the hyperbolic time chambers, right? But slightly different. You can go into these if you want to. All you have to do is open the door and get brutalized by the things that you ignore and you deny and you avoid and you reject about yourself and the life and others. That's what you have to do. Sit with your pain. But you can't do that. You don't want to do that because you're afraid. You're not vulnerable with yourself. You are afraid. That's why there are truths you don't accept. But in order for you to become a leader, an emotional leader, you're going to have to be incredibly vulnerable with yourself. And this vulnerability is 24/7. It's a practice that you learn. But what you learn is that this vulnerability is the opposite of fear. It's the opposite of fear. Now, in my last video, I told you guys, right, so one thing I really want to make clear of you guys, when it comes to the linear progression that you're dealing with a woman. If you're in a long-term relationship with a woman, the goal is for her to be 100% vulnerable with you. But for you, the goal is to be 100% vulnerable with you. You don't need to cry in front of your missus. You don't need to show your missus all of your most weakest moments. You don't really need to do that. And in many, many ways, depending on your missus and depending on so many things, you probably shouldn't do that. You're vulnerable with your God. Be vulnerable with your Lord. Be vulnerable with your higher self, your higher consciousness. You'll be vulnerable with those things. You are a leader. You've got a job to do. It's not very, very nice that a leader shows its weakness to those who follow it. That's not very nice. I would say that's not very nice of you to do that. What you want to do, the leader carries a burden. And in many, many ways, the leader carries the bulk of the fear of those who follow it. Instead of you all suffering in fear, the leader decides, I can burden this fear and I can free my followers from it. But I can burden it. We don't all need to exist in this fear. I can channel it onto myself. And as a leader, this is what you do for your missus and for your children. A man has always wrapped his woman and his children in fantasy wrap bubbles so they can enjoy life a bit better. A masculine man has always identified that the feminine and the children are feminine as well. They can't stand the full extent of reality. Most masculine men struggle to withstand the full scope of reality. So how much better is your woman and your child going to fare off? So it's a part of the masculine, and you, as a man, you're rewarded for doing these things. And these are the things that God will tell you. You're rewarded for doing that, for making that sacrifice. Wow, for taking everyone's fear on board and you holding it on your shoulders. You dealing with these things with me. You see what I'm trying to say? Like, you being vulnerable with me. But when you're in front of your people, those you lead, you don't show them that weakness. You want to project strength at all times. Really, you do. You want to project strength, and you want these people to understand. You want them to feel that you're so strong. Your strength is fully encompassing. It's spiritual, that they are safe individuals. This world is very, very scary to a lot of people. So it's part of the masculine journey to burden the fear of others. Just like with leaders, you got to understand the safety. Why do all human beings defer to leaders? Because the leaders actually burden a lot of the fear and a lot of the anxieties and the uncertainty of its people. And when you do this, you actually get very, very good at it, because you learn how to alchemize the fear into strength. You slay those. You're so good at slaying fear. Actually, you're the best person for it. You have the ability, you alchemize fear into strength. And when you're able to do this, you develop a natural strength. And this strength is naturally projected onto others. It's naturally projected onto others. Because that is the true concept of strength. That truly is what strength is. The leader burdens the fear and the anxieties of its people, and it projects onto its people certainty and a path and a direction, something to be hopeful about, right? Something that makes them believe we're all good because of this leader. But the leader doesn't have somebody else for him to go to. No, the only person he's got to go to is God, is his higher self, right? The leader is always the most vulnerable. The leader, it burdens the most things. And this is the reason why usually when a king loses a war, he understands he's going to get it. He's going to get chopped. He will be chopped if his people loses his war. His family will be eradicated if his people loses this war. So the leader always burdens more than anybody else. It's not a privileged, it's not really a privileged position. What you guys need to understand is when it comes to human beings, when it comes to mammals, there is this big misconception that the weak serve the strong. That's not true. When it comes to human beings, the strong serve the weak. And most mammals, by the way, there was this study, right, where they put two pigs in this little circle thing, and they put a glass shield in between it. And Both pigs had access to a button that they can press. And when they press this button, the other person is fed. Now, these scientists assumed that the big pig will use its intimidation on the small pig to basically get the small pig to consistently feed the big pig food. And they were wrong. Actually, the entire opposite happened. The small pig actually was feigning weakness, and it was triggering the bigger pig's sympathy. And what the small pig, what it was doing, it ended up manipulating the big pig to consistently feed the small pig food. And the big pig was feeding the small pig food. They had to stop the experiment because the big pig was about to die through starvation. The little pig learned how to manipulate it and basically created a system to where it was getting all the food, and it was purposely not giving the bigger pig any food. That's how human nature is. The strong and the big human beings, we are good. And we also serve the weak. The weak human beings, 9 times out of 10, are evil. And they're the most manipulative, the most devious, and the most malevolent. Everything good about me, every good characteristic I have had, I have developed, it's come from sitting with truths. Overcoming pain. And then you get to a point to where, oh, well, you've overcome this now. You've overcome that. You get to a point in your life to where you've overcome so many pain and sufferings. It's like there isn't much to overcome. And then you're looking for other things, other truths, other things to sit with, other things that you can work on. And it becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. You remain exactly how you are, but everybody else perceives you to be so masculine, so fearless, so courageous, so brave, so resilient. That's how everybody else perceives you. Right? That's just how life works. But the masculine is always, the more masculine the man, the more fearless he is, especially to other people. Vulnerability is a strength with yourself. Now, this is where a lot of men go wrong. They believe that they should share their vulnerability to others. No, not really. You need your boundaries. People need to earn who you are. You need your boundaries because in this world, as I said, the weak will always try to overcome the strong. So if you're strong, if you're a source of light in this world, you have to protect yourself. You just simply do. Now, this isn't a defense mechanism. This is strategy. The weak is devious. It's malevolent. They would always try to destroy you because they're so afraid of your strength. And they hate themselves for their weakness. So you're not just supposed to be vulnerable with people. People need to earn these types of vulnerability with you. And as I said, even then, when it comes to you leading a woman or some children, you're not really supposed to project vulnerability to them. It's just that simple. You know, if you want to be vulnerable, go and be vulnerable with your boys, with your male covenant, with your brother, with God. All right. If you want to be vulnerable, go be vulnerable with the other leaders, trusted individuals who are also vulnerable and strong. Don't project vulnerability onto the weak. The weak can only take advantage of it, if that makes sense. So when it comes to dealing with your woman, you are to be 100% vulnerable with yourself, because a man who's 100% vulnerable with himself is a man who slays all dragons, is a man who will eventually slay all of his dragons to the point where he has no dragons. And he's freed up to now help other people slay their dragons. This is going to be a man who builds abundance. You're going to feel his vitality. You're going to feel his aura. This is a good man. He doesn't have defense mechanisms and coping mechanisms. He's not a manipulative man. He's not a judgmental man. He's not a man completely driven by his moral value judgments. He's not a man with conflicting beliefs, cognitive dissonance. He's not a spiteful man, a nihilistic man. He's opened all those doors and he's cleared them out. This gave him the clarity to be able to proceed in life. Does that make sense? Because I know when I speak to a lot of you guys, you don't fully understand that. For some reason, you see being vulnerable as a weakness. No, it's not. Maybe being vulnerable with other people that don't deserve it. Or maybe being vulnerable with other people when you've not done the internal work. Yeah, but being vulnerable with yourself can only be a strength. It's a process. In order for you to become everything you can be, you've got to surrender to life. You've got to surrender to life. That's how you overcome fear. You've got to surrender. You have to have no attachment to outcomes. You've got to be independent from outcomes. Get over your feelings. Get over how you think things should be. Right? Does that make sense? That's how you become an excellent man. It's a process that starts with vulnerability. But you just be vulnerable with yourself. That's what's required. When you're vulnerable with yourself, you're an incredibly powerful man. Right? And then the rest of the world takes strategy. Of course, life takes strategy. Right? So again, with my last video, you are 100% vulnerable with yourself. And then your goal with women is that to make the woman 100% vulnerable with you. But the only way she could be 100% vulnerable with you is if she's 100% vulnerable with herself. The woman submits to you. You don't submit to the woman. Does that make sense? You submit to your God, to your higher calling. All right? Whatever we submit to is what we fear. We don't fear the woman. The woman fears us, and for good reason. And it's easier for the woman to be 100% vulnerable with herself because she's being taken care of. You're looking after her. You provided her with a safe space. You help her slay her dragons. You protect her. She's got someone to call and you'll pull up. You're there. You're offering her containment. She's not alone. It's harder for the man to be 100% vulnerable with himself because he fears the majority. He fears real life and death consequences. The woman's vulnerability is not life and death consequences. It's just about her overcoming her shame. That's about it, her childhood traumas, because she's always going to be protected. All right? But in order for you to provide a woman with the emotional space she needs, all you need to do is be 100% vulnerable with yourself. When you are 100% vulnerable with yourself, you're going to have the nervous system and the ego of the dog that leads the pack. Right? That's going to make her feel safe. When you're 100% vulnerable with yourself, you're going to know what to do with women. You're going to know what to do with life. You're going to know what to do with your children. You're going to know what to do with your enemies. You're fearless. When you don't have fear, you have clarity, you have direction, you have purpose. All of those things are going to make the woman feel incredibly safe with you. Incredibly safe with you. Your boundaries create the safe space that the woman is looking for. Both the rewards of your boundaries and the punishments for crossing them. That's what makes a woman feel safe. Yeah, I'm with the right guy. All right, guys, I love you guys. Hope that makes sense. If this does not make sense, please leave a comment so you understand this and we can move on, please, brothers. Thank you very much. Leave a like, leave a comment, sign up for one-on-one coaching. As I said, I'm not putting any love into this video, so it may not be up here for long, so get your comments in. Let me close off on this. One of my favorite clients is a fellow called Lucas. You know, very smart, very high IQ individual. Like, he's not an easy client whatsoever. He'll question everything down to the T before accepting it and moving on, which I love, to be fair. Like, he keeps me on my toes. And because of that as well, the progress that I have with him is very, very, very serious, you know, with our work and stuff, you know. And he really, really likes how I break down empathy, you know, and how I basically explain how the ultimate goal of empathy is to make accurate predictions. Now, this fella is very, very, very smart, very high IQ, and he's been teaching me stuff. You know, he learned that from me, and he's been teaching me stuff about just how profound, how everything in life is basically all about making accurate predictions. Like, honestly, this guy has given me all of the different analogies and everything like that. I won't tell you what his profession is and stuff, but it's a very, very high profile profession. You know, he's like a scientist. But anyway, and so when we talk, because that stands out to him, accurate predictions, how everything we are doing is us making accurate predictions, it's began to stand out to me a lot more as well, you know, like, and just how everything really is and us making accurate predictions, you know. And so, and everything really is empathy. The process of empathy, remember, is that you put your thoughts, feelings, motivations, and fears to the side in order to make accurate predictions of things. It's just that simple. We aren't emotionally attached to outcome. We're not emotionally attached to anything. We're not dependent on anything. We are independent from everything. And we use all of our resources to make accurate predictions about stuff. We cultivate our own values, our own higher values, our own direction, our own purpose in life. You know, in order to do that, we need access to the truth so we can make the most accurate predictions that we can. All right, so for you guys who are watching my content and you are looking for a fault in something that I am saying. Or you'll say, not all women. Like, fella, I'm only making accurate predictions. If you were as intelligent as the rest of my followers were, you'll understand that I'm not talking about absolutes and guarantees. What absolutes and guarantees can I tell you guys? What absolutes and guarantees can I tell you guys? I said in a previous video, the only thing that sells absolutes and guarantees is the devil, is con artists, is scammers. Game recognizes game and truth recognizes truth. The things that I'm saying, it resonates with people on a deep level because it matches their pattern recognitions and it matches their predictions that they've made, right? So if anything, I'm just providing something that can make their predictions a bit more accurate. And that's the reason why they love me and they love my page, right? And this is the reason why I love them as well, because it's like a tribe. You know, we've got similar patterns and we've made similar predictions. So we're quite spiritually similar. I'm not selling absolutes and guarantees, just predictions, just accurate predictions. Go on YouTube. Don't waste your time moaning and bitching and complaining in my comment section. Go and apply them in the real world. This is how I know everybody who just causes me problems in my comment sections. You're not true participators in life. You are emotional, judgmental beings. You don't apply things. You don't apply knowledge to the world. You don't apply knowledge to slay dragons. It's all this theoretical crap in your mind. Go and apply it in the real world and go see if it works or not. Don't moan and complain about what I'm saying. Go and apply it in the real world. You can't tell me it doesn't work. With different ages, different women from socio-economic backgrounds, different races, completely different personalities. Single and taken women. It's just an accurate prediction of life. Not even just with women, it works with children. In certain areas, it works with men. I've practiced this thing non-stop. I don't think you guys quite understand. You need to understand that I've been a salesman since I was 17 years old. Right, I was doing door-to-door sales for about 3 years. Why was I doing door-to-door? Well, 2 years. Why was I doing door-to-door sales? Because I was making more money than everybody else. I had a talent for door-to-door sales. Pure commission as well. I was just making 100% commission. But I had a talent. I've really been, my whole life, I've been a social scientist. I have been repeatedly trialing and testing things on other human beings. I have a massive wealth of results, research, accurate evidence, powerful patterns. I've made several predictions in this life. I know what is accurate and what I communicate to you guys are very accurate. Oh, but not for all women. Okay. So what? That's not what I'm selling to you guys. I'm selling accurate predictions. You're going to sign up for one-on-one coaching and I'm going to give you mad accurate predictions on everything that we talk about. Okay? Stop being so emotional. Oh, well, this is very misleading. Well, this doesn't make sense. Fucking apply it. If it doesn't make any sense to you, it's because you're not a participator. Huh? Doesn't make sense to you. Of course it doesn't make sense to you. You slept with 2 women your whole life. Of course it doesn't make sense to you. Of course it don't make sense to you. What? You slept with 2 women from the same race your whole life. Of course it don't make sense to you. You don't know nothing. What have you done? How have you participated in this life? Of course it don't make sense to you. You haven't done anything. You're a keyboard warrior. You make theories and you have an understanding about life from the comforts of your home, from an emotional place, from a way that allows you to justify why you don't participate in life. What are we talking about here? You're a novice talking to an expert. You're not even a novice, you're a rookie. You failed to launch. You haven't passed the trial period. Because it doesn't make sense to you. What predictions have you made? My stuff is advanced stuff. It's not basic. So if you don't understand this stuff, leave the page and go and build up a basic understanding of this stuff. It doesn't come from online. It comes from touching grass. And you going out there and dealing with women. If you've never had a rotation before, you don't know what I'm talking about then. Do ya? You've never slept with a girl on the first date. Think about how poor your accurate predictions. Think about how poor your predictions are to mine. Think about how poor your predictions are to mine. I told you I've slept with over 100 women. 90% of those women I slept with on the first date. If you can't fathom that, then think about how poor your predictions of women is. Okay then. That's literally what we're talking about here. You just have poor predictions. You just don't know what you're talking about here. And that's fine. Sign up for 101 coaching. Sit and behave and watch the videos without talking, because you're just annoying. Honestly, you're just annoying. You don't know anything. You don't know what you're talking about. Game recognizes game. If you don't have similar predictions or patterns than I do, and your outcomes with women is nowhere near as good as mine, I don't know how old you are, stuff like that. But as I said, you know, I've even left that behind. I mean, I have family, children. I have a complete different life. I have a very unique life. Okay, so if your experiences and your outcomes are nothing like mine, just shut the fuck up and learn. Anyway, guys, love you guys. Leave a like, leave a comment, sign up for 101 coaching. And I might take this video down. We'll see. But anyway, honestly, this video, go and put your questions in, innit? I feel in the mood. I don't want to keep talking about this stuff. I want to move on. If you don't understand what I mean about vulnerability, if you don't understand what I mean about accurate predictions, then let me know. Let's get it out of the way.